700 home run club.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I therefore ask the Congress, above and beyond the increases I have earlier requested for space activities, to provide the funds which are needed to meet the following national goals. First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
And we're back with another episode of Triple Play, and as you noticed, probably from our intro, it's a little different today. So we are going to learn a lot about NASA and the space race, and a lot about Christian Family Day and the extraordinary journey this couple made during that. So before we get rolling into that, just a couple of quick house things that we wanted to say. First of all, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, like, and share. And we grow as you guys get our word out. And also, if you're interested in any financial planning, make sure you give our man Andy McCollum, who's been helping us the last few weeks, walk through the playoff situation of football. He'll be on our next episode. Give him a call at Resource One at 636-458-1398. Also, if you are looking for somebody to do your web design, like our intro or our logo or many other things dealing with the tech side of things, give CS Design and call my man Chris at 573-436-3717. As I said, they did our logo and intro, and so we're excited. He's working on our website we'll have here shortly, so give my man Chris a call. That said, as you saw again in our opening today, we're excited about this. I'm excited. This is going to be a really fun discussion today. A couple of just quick little notes I want to put out there just because they happened since our last episode. We were talking about Lopez. We'll get into it our next episode, but he was traded to the Minnesota Twins. And then in the last 24 hours, one more little quick note, the Marino family for the Angels have pulled the team off of the market. They have decided that they love the Angels, love the city, and they are no longer for sale. So, and
maybe it sounds like maybe there's no takers. That's why he was like, I guess we're done.
I don't know. He said that there were. So, but who knows? Who knows? But their statement is that they just, that through the process, they realized just how much they love the Angels and the people there, and they didn't want to part with the team, the players, and the employees, and the fans. So we'll see. But maybe we'll get a little more detail on that on our next episode. But just want to bring those up because they are some quick notes to pay attention to. So that being said, today's guest, we have JIm and Judy Boen. The Boens started working for NASA in the first part of their lives. They became part of the race for space and the moon. And then in the second half, they moved to St. Louis, raised two girls, and started something about Willie McGee's cookies and have Christian Family Days, and somehow become so special to Albert that he flies them to his 40th birthday. So what an amazing life, and we want to dig into that a little bit and get to know them and their testimony of how God interwoven all this to his glory. And so that being said, let's start with a little bit of NASA. So and a little bit about your backgrounds. Let's start with your backgrounds. Where were you guys each from? So
I'm from North County. Graduated from Normandy High School.
Normandy High School, okay. How about you, Jim?
I'm from Wildwood, Florida. Played basketball down there, and I was a three-letter sportsman, basketball, football, and baseball.
Well, there you go. And if I remember right, didn't I hear you say that your team actually played on a dirt ground or a court one time? So
that's awesome.
Not quite. It was asphalt.
Okay.
And we all wore knee pads because we was always playing hard and jumping on the ball and jumping on our knees, and
Okay.
Was that a court that you regularly played at, or was that out of desperation one day?
No, that was what all our county could afford.
Asphalt. That's
That's
no crying on the court, right?
No, no.
That's
Okay, and then so Jim, what got you to NASA? What was the journey there? So
Well, in 1960, my dad developed cancer, and I approached Judy and said, we got to go to Florida. And I had no job down there, but and I was working with McDonnell Douglas, and McDonnell Douglas had a plant down there in Titusville with the tow missile. And my qualifications didn't suit in for what they had at that time, so I applied at NASA, and NASA hired me on.
gotcha. Now, did you know Judy before going down to going back down there to work?
Oh yes, we were married 2 years before that, and we lived over in Cool Valley, and traveled back and forth, from getting up early in the morning. I was at work at 6:30 in the morning. She got to work at 7:30, I think it was, and I would make my rounds down on the F4. I was in the forward section.
Wow.
I was liaison engineer, and after making my rounds, I'd make it to the bathroom. And in that trip, I would also travel by her desk, and underneath her plastic cover was every baseball player that you could imagine.
Oh, so she was a baseball girl from the start, hey?
To death do us part.
So how did you guys meet?
Well, like I said, I went to the bathroom, and the cooler was right along the way there, and one day we both collided at the same spot.
Ironically, you just kind of set it up that way, making sure you'd happen. Maybe
Perhaps.
went a little bit slower as that hot girl was showing up to the cooler.
Perhaps.
Hey, I got a question. When you think of NASA today, you think of space race, Mars, all these things. What was the thought of NASA in 1960? I mean, this NASA's still pretty new. Like growing up, did kids think of space? I don't know. I didn't live that time. I don't know. Like I imagine kids now grow up, they think they can be astronauts, they can be this, they can be that. It's just interesting to think that you got into NASA that long ago. What was the thinking of NASA back then? Like, did you know what you were getting into? Did you have any thoughts? Was it like prestigious? Was it, what was it like thinking of NASA back then?
Even though I came from Central Florida, which is 100 miles from Titusville, where the space industry is over on Merritt Island, I had very little information about it. I did go to Parks College across in Cahokia, Illinois, and had a little bit of association there with pilots, for future pilots of the Air Force that wanted to get into the Air Force and the Marines and so forth, Navy. And I associated myself with them, and I became a mechanical engineer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was more spacecraft, that kind of thing, like tangible things, not like a big idea that we're going to do this kind of thing.
Well, their goal was always to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you guys go down there, you start working for NASA,
Well,
and then who gets the job first? You?
Yes, I get the job first. Go down there as I hired on as a GS5, but once I got down there, they bumped me up to GS7, which was a considerable raise at the time, because it was kind of tough to get going and getting a place to live, and a newlywed. We'd only been married a year, and pick her up and take her down to Florida to meet my needs of family and my dad's health and so forth.
Awesome. Now, Judy, you start working there, right? And did you immediately become a secretary? Is that where your job was?
no, I came down from St. Louis, and then I went to work at I took typing tests. I was in the typing pool,
Okay.
and they sent me all over place. And one day the gal came to me and she said, "Judy, we've had gals go work in the astronaut office. They don't like the gal that works there, Lola. She's been there forever. And they come home within 6 weeks, come back here." I said, "Okay." I walk into the astronaut office. I could not believe it. There sat Shepard and Slayton and all the guys I had seen on TV come back in the space program.
Yeah, they were all there, hey?
They were all there.
That's cool.
And my heart thought, what in the world is a girl like me doing in a place like this?
That's awesome. But you got to know each one of these people over time, right?
Oh, yeah, they were in my office, sure.
Yeah.
I did things for them, and we were friends that way.
So initially, Shepard would have been one of the first ones, right?
Yeah.
So how was that? How was he? Was he fun to work with? Was he serious? Was he goofy? What was the atmosphere around with that crew?
He was, the temperament, he was a choleric. He very strange, everything was by the book, but he could be fun. So it was both of those together.
Okay. Anybody else from that period that kind of sticks out? From that first crew that you kind of walk into the office, or Shepard? Who else was there?
Cooper.
Was he fun?
And he's kind of quiet.
And they were all there. Is that where what did the astronauts do within that building other than, I would imagine they trained, they kept up on their rest, those type of things?
Yeah, that was strictly secretarial work in that office. They had their place there.
Okay.
But they went to other buildings for their training.
Okay.
Out of the pad and so forth.
So that was just day in and day out for them, just train.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so they probably just had like a desk, a phone, and they would do some paperwork and
Sure.
stuff like that around there, scheduling anytime. So,
Jim, I got a question. You mentioned GS5 and GS7. For those of us who don't know what that is, what is a GS5? What is that? A clearance? Is that a type of understanding of the equipment you're working with?
It's sort of your ability level of what you're capable of doing and what you can contribute.
Okay.
And as you go up 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15,
Yeah.
and then you get into the super grades of special significance of where you're super grades.
Yeah. Different materials like alloys and stuff.
Well, as an engineer, you're familiar with all of them,
Yeah.
and some of them you're more familiar with others than you are.
Okay. And is that to climb those ranks? Is there testing involved, or is it just someone that notices that you're you're being more proficient, you're being more understanding of what you're doing?
Well, the more dedication and discipline you have, the more you're going to achieve in life.
Right.
And it's the same way with engineering. You've been trained for many skills in engineering across the board, but as you learn and dig into it, you learn more and you apply yourself more, and the more you can contribute is recognized, and their dedication has a lot to do with it.
Okay. All right. That's interesting.
I was a lowly GS3.
You were GS or TS? GS3.
GS3.
Okay. That's better than 1. Do they go into negatives? Like you're on the fence, like we're about to get...
that'd be us, Scott. Scott, we'd be a negative.
That's fun.
So, no. So now I got a question for you, because he's been in the news the last few days because he just got married at 93. Buzz Aldrin. What do you think of that guy?
He was a sweetheart. You saw the picture of me with I can't think of his name.
Was it another astronaut?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Lovell, with Jim Lovell. So I knew him pretty good. So he was very industrious. He came back and talked in St. Louis about 2 years ago. Very intellectual, and he was just a great guy.
He had to be a little bit ambitious because he set some records as an astronaut. I remember reading about him. He went to space 4 times, I think was a record.
Went to the moon.
Went to the moon. He was on the shuttle that was had some problems, and they had to circle the moon twice, I think, before they could get off the circuit around the moon.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading that. So he had to be ambitious, I imagine, because after all that, he kept going back up there.
Yeah.
Oh, they all were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was their goal, to go to the moon, and they worked hard at that.
They loved it, hey?
Oh, yeah.
Now you served underneath both Gemini and the Apollo missions, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, what for those who may not know a little bit about the Gemini versus the Apollo missions, what was the big difference?
Well, Mercury was 1 astronaut. Gemini was 2. Apollo was 3 astronauts went up at the same time.
And Apollo is what got us to the moon. So Gemini is what got us kind of around space, right? We started orbiting a little bit with that one, if I remember right.
And the first one was suborbital, where it went up and just came down.
Yeah, just trying to get up in outer space and prove that we could get there. So, very interesting. That. So now, just your thoughts, because obviously we've been to the moon. Elon Musk right now is trying to go back to the moon, and then he wants to go to Mars. What do you think of that? Isn't that interesting?
Cool, yeah. I would go.
Sign her up.
Sign me up.
I'll go with you. I'll go with you.
You would go?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, Scott's going.
Yep.
You gotta have 3.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Any other volunteers?
Maybe they'll make the price of admission one of those cool ties you made. So
Yes.
now you made hand ties for most of these astronauts, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But just for the 3, it was for their flight. John Young was one of my favorite. He was a lot of fun. Always a lot of fun. He's the one that took a sandwich from one of the local restaurants and took it in space.
Oh, wow.
Oh, the food was awful. I don't know how they ate that food.
They probably noticed, too, with the weight difference.
Well, yeah.
But
But he had that in his pocket and he pulled out and went everywhere.
all the crumbs.
All over the spacecraft.
Oh, that's
He
hilarious.
got a little bit of trouble for that one.
Just a little bit?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah. So it's good to know that those guys are a little ornery every now and then, too,
Oh,
hey?
yeah. We used to get a phone call and say, tell Grissom to quit driving his car around the space pad because going too fast is his thing.
Now, I know another guy you liked a lot because you've had a few articles about him is Jim Lovell. What do you think of Jim?
Oh, he's a doll. He was always so friendly and nice to me. He was great.
Did you make a tie for Jim? Do you remember?
No, he
No.
wasn't in that flight.
Okay.
No.
Do you remember the colors of the ties? Was it one big color, or did you do any
No, I had
designs?
pictures of the astronauts.
Oh.
They were neat. I saw the fabric. I thought, I'll make those and send it to them. And they wrote me back and said they were really nice. So
That's cool.
Well, if anybody wants to see those, I did put up on our website a view of all your personal items that we took pictures of. So they can go out there, we put some music behind it, and those ties are included. So they can see those ties if they're interested. Just go out to our Triple Play YouTube or Rumble site and check that out. There's about a 10-minute clip of like almost 300 pictures of all the various things from your passes to your hard hats to some of the cool Gemini and Mercury paperwork and pictures. So if anybody wants to see what the launches kind of look like or what the astronauts look like at that time, you had them. So
and some food in the packages and how they suck the food out after they put water in it and let them sit for about 5 minutes, and then
Suck up
Re-
that
rehydrates.
They
Yeah.
were working with their hands, set it up on the spacecraft. It was all lined with Velcro. Velcro came from the space program.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yep, that came from the space program. And they would stick it up on there and work on whatever they were doing, and then take it down, cut it right here, and slurp it. That's where Slurpees came from.
Really?
Yeah.
So before
How they
NASA,
eat
there
their
was no
dinner.
Slurpees. No Slurpees before NASA.
I don't,
There you go.
I don't know.
7-Eleven has a lot to thank to NASA for.
Yeah.
So we've gone over Buzz, we've gone over Lovell. Anybody else and Shepard? Anybody else that stood out during that time that you really thought was cool? How about anybody that was a little more ornery than others? Maybe.
Oh, how about Conrad? Pete Conrad was a character. And he'd get phone calls from home. Your kid jumped off the roof. He sounds like you, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd say, your kid jumped off the roof. What? But he was full of it.
Yeah.
He was full of it. Hey, that's great. That's great. Jim, did you get the chance to meet any of the astronauts when you were working on them?
yes, Judy invited me to go to one of the, what was it, a dance or a
Yeah.
dinner?
Right there.
And I met several of them, and John Young was one of the ones that I recall meeting.
Oh, fun.
And they were great.
You just got them to space. They just got to have all the fun, right? So you did all the hard work getting them there?
Well, I was out on the launcher and did a lot of the things that made it all possible for the astronaut to go up.
There you go. Yeah, well, it takes a lot of people to do that, right?
Oh.
So,
Many.
yeah.
All the way from St. Louis. 2 of the astronauts came back to see their spacecraft, and they went into the side of the building right where it was and were killed, 2 of them.
Really?
During the time of doing the space program.
Now, if I remember, you've got a story about something like that happening that kind of led to you really becoming bold about your faith, which I think plays into the second part of your life with Christian Family Day to some degree. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I've heard bits and pieces of this, but why don't you share that a little bit?
Okay. I really had a hard time sharing my faith. But one night, it was on a Wednesday evening, Chaffee came into the office. There where they slept, and it was connected to our office, so they could come in. And he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm typing my minutes for my husband. He's chairman of evangelism at our church." And he said, "Oh, what church do you go to?" I said, "The Methodist." He said, "I go to the Presbyterian church." Well, that's as far as our talk went about the spiritual things. And he finished up what he was doing. I finished up typing. Went home Wednesday night. Friday, they were all ready to go to the spacecraft to try it out. And it was a hard time for me. But anyway, they went to the spacecraft, and that's when the fire broke out. And 3 astronauts died on the spacecraft, on the ground. And, it hit me. Judy Boen, God knew that Chaffee was going to be dead in a couple of days. And you didn't share your faith with him. All you talked about was what church you went to. And church doesn't save anybody. It's the Christian experience of having Jesus in your life. So I thought, oh man, I better. So we got through all the funerals and everything. And the doorbell rang one night. Gal came by and she was selling Avon, but she also shared her faith. She had a little book called Four Spiritual Laws.
Yeah, I remember that book.
Remember the book?
Yeah, I remember that.
And she had the Four Spiritual Laws. And she asked me if I had Jesus in my life, and she showed me how I could have him in my heart. I said, he's in my heart, but I don't know how to share him. And she said, come to my church. It was a good old Baptist church. Come to my church, and my pastor will show you how to share your faith. So he took me out with him when he went to share his faith. And then he threw me to the wolves. He said, Judy, give your testimony. I said, oh my goodness. And so I gave my testimony to the man. And he prayed to become a Christian that night. Yeah, it was really cool.
That's awesome.
And I thought, this is what I have to do. And so easy with this little booklet, reading it and emphasizing things in it. So that's what we learned to do. We came back to St. Louis, and we went all over St. Louis to churches, teaching them how to share their faith. Now, our own church we got thrown out because they didn't want us to say any more about sharing our faith.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw Ellisville Baptist. We went to church there. Went to church there, and it was able to share my faith. I taught them how to share their faith, and it was really fun. Once I learned how to do that and be bold and be strong for the Lord that God is with me. I learned that, and it made all the difference in the world.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That's awesome. And so that became a motivating factor, really, that fueled the rest of your life to some degree.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I would definitely. My experience with you for the last 20 years has been one of the most fearless people I know coming to share their faith. Everywhere we would go, especially back during the Christian Family days, I mean, you and Joe, we would go all over the place. I'd be laughing so hard my belly would hurt, and you guys would be out sharing your faith, like Laverne and Shirley. So,
well, when I started Christian Family Day, I called the Cardinals, and they said, we've never heard of anything with baseball and Christian. And I tried to explain to them what I was doing. So they said, come on down, we'll talk to you about it. So Joe Beeman, who was my motivator and fun, she raised all my money, thousands of dollars she raised. We brought kids in to see the game. We had to buy their tickets to the Cardinal. But anyway, we went down.
Well, I mean, that was part of the goal, right, of Christian Family Day was, at least from when I was part of it, you guys saw it as a chance to have Christians share their faith after the game. But part of it was also the experience of bringing underprivileged kids who maybe wouldn't necessarily be able to afford a ticket to the ball game, have an opportunity to come down and enjoy a ball game and then hear some of their heroes on the field after the game share their faith. And if I understood things right, that's how I understood it.
Yes.
Yeah, do you remember how many? I know your last year we had quite a few. Do you remember how many we had that year of the kids?
We brought 3,000 kids. We started with 50 kids and got up to 3,000 as kids that were in the neighborhood that were just never, ever have a chance to.
Yeah, they use different nonprofit organizations all over St. Louis, from Camp Panuel to whatever. I remember there was a lot of the different ones from poverty or low-income areas that gave kids a chance to come to the ball game, and that was, what a cool thing. I mean, what kid doesn't want to go see a Cardinal game, right, especially in the St. Louis area?
Yeah, that's for sure. When I went down to the Cardinals to talk to them, they still didn't understand what we were going to do. And I said, the players have a platform. People listen to them so they can share their faith. And we got a lot of Christians on our team. Well, at that moment, in walks Marty Hendon.
Oh, I love Marty. Marty,
Marty
I'll
went,
never forget him, and he was so funny. He would always say Judeo-Christian Day. That was why I always loved him. He would always say, big old Marty would come rolling in, Judeo-Christian Day. And, they still have at Busch Stadium, underneath the stadium back at that back part, his whole collection of Cardinal memorabilia that he had in his office. And it's encased. They have a case for it that is encased. So,
well, when he walked in, and he said, "Oh, well, that's good. Go ahead, come into my office, and we'll talk about it." Well, the workers looked because he never let anybody in his office unless they were important, like a ball player or whatever. And they could not believe we were going to go to his office. He took us to the office and was thrilled with what we were doing. He started a Jewish day there as well from what we did.
yeah.
So but he said, "You Christians want more tickets."
Hey, real quickly, what year would that have been? Just so we get people.
Christy graduated from high school in 1990. So it'd be 1990.
1990s when you started Christian Family Day? Okay. So I want to go back to that, but I do want to finish up talking a little bit more about NASA because, I know we have a lot of people who will listen in on that part and kind of identify with that. And we still haven't gotten you back to St. Louis, right? We have to get you back here. So and when we're down here, you get to go through this program. What was the last ship that you were around for as a secretary and you on the pad? What was it? The space shuttle?
Well, I guess, yeah, it was Apollo. He worked. Did you work on Apollo? He worked on Apollo.
So Apollo was one of the last Apollo missions, probably?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I know you went back down for a space shuttle one, right? So did you guys go see the shuttle launch?
Not that I remember.
No?
we didn't
Okay.
go to the shuttle.
All right.
No.
So how many years altogether down in Florida?
4 years.
Yeah.
They
I
give-
was homesick for my Cardinals and my family.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, you can speak.
To give you a little side note, on pad 34 was the pad that the 3 astronauts perished in. I happened to be out on the pad that day and up at that level, and I walked around the Apollo spacecraft, not knowing what was going to be occurring in less than 2 hours.
Wow.
I went home, and Judy and I were having a meal together, and we heard the news.
Mm.
And
Do you-
on TV.
Do you remember what caused that?
well,
If you remember.
the speculation was that there was another failure on the of the system that they were going through and the checklist and so forth. And the speculation is that Grissom got a little bit angry, because he was a kind of a hothead, and he would say, "This lemon is." Just before that, they'd hung a lemon on it, a plastic lemon, showing what it was, because the original spacecrafts, 1 and 2, the Gemini and so forth, were made by McDonnell Douglas. Well, they had all the technology, and the low bidder came in, which is North American. North American had to go through a huge learning curve, and they wound up hiring a lot of McDonnell Douglas employees to help them get to where they were. And it was a problem, and they figured that one of the astronauts, more likely was Grissom, kicked a circuit board, and the circuit board sparked, and it was in pure oxygen environment of which they were in. And as that spark went, so did just an instant fireball.
Mm.
I've enjoyed space since I was a kid. Spaceship, what kid doesn't? I've never seen video of that. There's got to be video of that, right?
Oh, in my mind, you could hear him say, "Help! Get us out of here! Get us out of here!"
Yeah.
And they had the top of the spacecraft. They had to do it inside and outside, and it was not done, and they died before them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I
Wow.
said it was level we listened to I got so tired of listening to that. But it just dug in your heart, get us out of here. And White was a wonderful Christian. He shared his faith with me, and he was wonderful. And the pastor said that Chaffee was a Christian. I don't know about Grissom, but it was I think we listened to it, and I think he kicked the wire and started the fire.
Yeah.
Now, before we kind of shift to coming back to St. Louis, I know you got these charms you brought in. Tell us a little bit about these. So,
well, one day they
want to hold them? Yeah.
Yeah, they came to me and said, Judy, the astronauts have what they call a pilot preference kit. And in the kit, they put things for their family and their friends. And we want to put this charm off your bracelet. I wore this all the time. Put charm off your bracelet on the spacecraft, and it'll fly with everything else, and we'll give it back to you. I was in shock. I couldn't believe it.
That's a great honor, huh?
Fly, yeah.
Yeah.
Fly in the spacecraft.
So that charm's been to space and back.
That's in the space. And then they came to me on Gemini 9 and said, give us another one. We'll put it on there for you. And so another one.
Can I see that one?
Yeah, flew in the spacecraft. And then on Gemini 11, they said, we're putting flags on there. So this flag flew on.
That's really cool.
Flag flew on the spaceship on Gemini 11.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So we got several that went up into Gemini. That is really, that is unique, fun. Not too many people can say that they have an object that made it to outer space and back, right?
Is it true? So, I was shocked.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
So, one last little thing. So when you guys heard like Kennedy say we're going to go to the moon and all these great speeches back then, was that a motivator for you guys too in the NASA program? Was that always in the back of the mind that you had to?
Gave them the oath to do it when the president said we're going to the moon. Yes, that's what we need. Why they got really excited.
Yeah, and what happened? How did you guys feel when we made it to the moon? What was that like?
Oh,
And what was the experience with somebody? Oh yeah, Apollo 9. That is cool.
that was amazing. Just to hear them, and we listened like on these things. You could hear them talking and all that, and just the fun things that they had and what they found, and they brought back rocks.
Did you see any of that?
Yeah.
So in your mind, just because there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, they went to the moon and back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just want to make sure that's clear. You were the secretary. If there was a conspiracy going around, you would probably know about it because you were around all these men. And it's safe to say that NASA didn't have a secret place where they recorded on a film thing of this whole NASA thing, but they actually went to the moon, went up to outer space. You built the rockets. You saw them go there. So, sorry, conspiracy theorists, but just to put it clearly, we did go to the moon and back.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. So that'd be really cool. What was it like for you too to be a part of that? I mean, obviously you got to help build these ships and be a part of this whole thing going on. Was seeing them go to the moon unique? I mean, what was the feeling behind your experience?
Well, I had the pleasure and the experience of doing a lot of firsts. One of the first things I did was travel down the canal leading to Cape Kennedy with the Saturn II booster rocket, which was about I reckon 120 feet long and about 90 feet in diameter section of the spacecraft. And the next big first that I got to do was travel to the launch pad from the VAB on the mobile launcher. Mobile launcher is capable of 2 miles an hour. But we were going along at 0.8 of a mile an hour because
They were trying to save fuel.
no, we were just trying to make sure we kept everything level and didn't fall over with the rocket up above us.
That is crazy. So in all that, what was it like to hear the astronauts finally make it to the moon? Was that pretty cool?
Oh, it was thrilling. We did that in St. Louis when we came back. We left right before the launch of the launch to the moon. Judy had to get back to see her Cardinals and be with her parents. I was thrilled that she had allowed me to go down and be with my dad when in his passing, and it was just a team effort. We each of us had a small part. And
Yeah.
It does. One man doesn't do it all. It takes a multitude of men working together.
Well said. I mean, that's like sports, right? I mean, a single ball player on a team. We've seen superstars be on teams that don't win anything other than his stats, and we see teams built with great players that go on and win, and maybe not one of them is really the superstar. Kind of seeing that right now in football. I was reading a stat the other day that of our 4 teams in the final, the only one of them was in the top 5 paid quarterbacks. So, and that's Mahomes. So, you never, it is definitely, sports are team effort. When you accomplish great things, it's almost always a great effort by those around and underneath those who usually get credit. So that's great. So now, have your girls come along? When you come back to St. Louis, do you guys have kids yet?
Yes, we had Angela in Florida.
Okay, so you come back, and we've got one kid now that you're bringing back with you, and then you guys would have your second one just a little while after then, I would assume?
5 years.
Wow,
I
okay.
had 5 miscarriages.
Wow.
So I worked hard getting her here.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Christy's watching in right now and listening to all this herself. So I'm sure she's heard these stories a million times, but we're appreciative of her sharing you guys today and allowing us to hear this a little bit. So we're through the NASA program, some of these great men and all that. Now we're back in St. Louis and we're working. And then you start Christian Family Day. Was there anything that happened baseball-wise before Christian Family Day?
Well, can we get to the origin story? Because when we were speaking earlier before we were on air, you had mentioned "Till Death Do Us Part" when we mentioned baseball, and that signifies that you love baseball.
I love it.
Yeah. So let's get
All
to
sports.
why is that?
I wanted to be a sports writer when I was in high school, and I went down to the Post-Dispatch and talked to Bob Bragg, and he said, "Girls don't belong in a sport. Go home and be a wife and a mother."
What, he was that direct?
Oh yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Well, I was with Dick Buck, and he said, "Anybody that wears a bow tie all year round," I believe he said that. That was.
And that was you. You wore a bow tie.
No, that was.
I'm just joking.
That was Bob Bragg.
Yeah.
But he was a great writer, but he had that feeling that girls didn't belong in sports. So I went home and had her, and she played softball and
Won a few championships, right?
Yeah.
She went on to play for Mizzou and did very, very well for girls softball, almost as far as you can go other than the Olympics. You weren't on the Olympics, were you, Christy? Okay.
that was her goal, was to go to the Olympics.
Yeah, just short a little bit of that, but I mean, Mizzou did really well at Mizzou. And so yeah, that's quite the accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
So, and along the way, so how did you come up with the idea of Christian Family Day?
I was in my kitchen working. All of a sudden, the idea came to me. Like I said, all players had a platform. People would listen when they spoke.
Absolutely.
And so I thought, I want to do this. And I put it all together in my head, but it was nothing like what it finally ended up being. But just I had an idea. I had Campus Crusade and gone to conferences, so I kind of had that background to know what to do. So that's how it got started.
So you go down there, Marty's all on board. You guys start Christian
Yeah.
Family Day. Now, that was 1990. Did you know Willie McGee before then?
No.
So that's about the time you would have met Willie McGee. Now, how did you guys meet Willie McGee? What's the story behind that?
How did we meet Willie? Well, Christy would go down. We're at spring training,
Okay.
and we go to spring training every year. And Greg Matthews, who was a pitcher for the Cardinals.
Yeah, we know Greg.
Great
Yeah.
pitcher.
Greg.
Yeah.
Well, he, Christy babysat for him. His kids listen to him. Unlike you, Scott. The poor kid came home crying because she didn't take care of
I got bad hearing.
Andy VanSlyke's kids. But she babysat his kids. And Greg, we went to spring training, and Jim asked Greg for a ball glove. Christy needed a new one for the year. And players all got new ones beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So he said, I'll check. So he looked all around, and Willie McGee said, I have this ball glove. I used it during the 87 World Series.
Wow.
And if she uses it, I just put it up on her shelf, I'll give it to her.
So do you want to be using this, Christy?
I did.
Oh, wow.
She wore it
Wow.
out. She wore it out.
I bet.
And then
87 World Series. Come on. That is amazing. So
you
won
what, honey?
I won a state championship. with it.
state championship with it. There you
Dual
go.
purpose.
Yeah. So Willie, if you're listening, there you go, my friend. That
glove was
glove
used
got
well.
yeah. That's the way you want it.
He gave her the glove, and she said, Mom, we got to do something to thank Willie. I thought, oh, I got this great cookie recipe.
Ooh.
I'll make them. And
Yeah, I actually had a.
I don't know if we can get a close up of this.
Yeah. So we got Willie McGee cookies comes out. So go ahead and tell this story. So you make Willie McGee cookies
I
and
make
thank them.
these chocolate chip cookies. Christy takes them down to Willie. I asked Greg later, I said, Greg, did he like the cookies? Like them, he wouldn't even share them with anybody. He sat there and ate the whole bag, the whole thing that I brought down there. He wouldn't share.
That's awesome.
So every time she'd see him, I got pictures of him. Boy, Christy, getting those cookies.
Yeah.
Every time we went to the game, we had to take cookies down to Willie. So from that, Willie said one day, I want to market those cookies. I want to sell them.
Now, as far as I know, Willie McGee never did anything like that. He was pretty private, he wasn't really into marketing or anything, but he must have really liked those cookies.
Can I read the back of the box?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In 1988, and this is the story that you just divulged, a teammate of mine asked me for a glove for an exceptional high school athlete named Christy. I gave her my 1987 World Series glove, and out of gratitude, she baked me some cookies. Little did she know how much I loved cookies, and these were delicious. My teammates always wanted some, but they were too good to share. After years of keeping these cookies to myself, I decided to share them with you. I hope you'll enjoy these cookies as much as I do. Willie McGee, signed on every box.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so they're chocolate chip pecan cookies.
Yeah.
Is this an original recipe? Is this
Jim-
box?
Jim brought it home from work,
Okay.
and they're wonderful. I'll have to make you some, Scott.
Please do.
They are, yeah.
They look good.
I'll make you some.
Now, I'll have to say this. If you make him some, you got
I'll
to...
make you some, too.
I was going to say, I had those one time when I first started working for
Oh.
Christian Family Day. You brought me some right to this office, and I was so thrilled. They were amazing. And I didn't share them with anybody else either. So there you go.
You got a middle name Willie.
There you go.
But every time we see Willie, even now, we took some down to him.
Oh, that's awesome.
But now he's got diabetes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we had anything to do with
Quit
that.
bringing them cookies.
Quit bringing the poor guy cookies.
Well, and so that shows, I mean, here's Willie McGee, early 90s, and all the way to now, you guys remain friends, and that's awesome. So yeah, what you got?
These boxes are in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown.
Really?
Yes.
That's awesome. There's something more unique about it.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Well, cool. Hey, put that behind her so we can I don't want to hide from Jim's face a whole lot. I mean, we like Willie's cookies, but people want to hear Jim talk. Yeah, it's all right. Just stick it up there behind her.
Go gadget arms.
Yep, that's. So now we got Christian Family Day started. We got William McGee in the picture, and we got Christy playing softball, going to state championships, and on to college. And during this time, Christian Family Day is starting to pick up steam. I know there were some other players that during that time made an impact with you because I've seen your pictures on your wall. So tell me about some of them.
Oh, dear God. Okay. We had AJ, what is the name of, I can't think.
Was he a player?
Ozzie Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it AJ? What?
Yeah, that's right. AJ.
AJ?
Yep.
He sang and his mom sang,
Yeah.
and we had them at there, but they were Greg, of course, Matthews and Albert Pujols. We let the wives share; they would share at that time.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, I know you have a special relationship with Albert, right?
Yeah.
Now, how did that come about? How did you and Albert first meet?
well, we got a phone call. Chrissy got a phone call, and it was from one of the ball players' wives.
Was that Polanco? Was that right?
Yeah, Placido Blanco, Lily.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
Yeah, I thought I knew the story a little bit.
Yeah. And she called Christy and said, I've got a ball player coming up from the minors. He's only going to be here a short time. He's replacing another player. And she said, could you get a baby bed? They've got a little baby. So Christy called around, got the baby bed. Jim went over and put it together. And I went with him.
Engineer stuff.
Yep.
And Dee Dee was there. And I said, Dee Dee, I do Christian Family Day with the Cardinals. I explained to her what it was. I said, would you and Albert participate? Oh, yeah, I'm a Christian and Albert's a Christian. We would love to participate. So the first time he participated was he came out and waved. That was it. And Dee Dee said, we are going to be more involved than just you waving. You're a share your faith. So we began to develop him. He said, we need a church to go to. I said, okay, I've got a church if you want to go check it out. Yes. So they came to our church, loved it, loved Pastor Hunter, and wanted to get more involved. And the kids went to school there. They had a school. Kids went to school. Dee Dee and Albert got involved in the church. And he would just be there, like any off season.
Yeah. I mean, I saw him. I went to church there, and we would see Albert. He was an everyday guy. In fact, one of my favorite memories of Albert talking about that was actually after they won their first World Series in 2006 when they won that first one. We had a fall festival at the church, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I'm there with Amy. Amy, we just had a newborn. Okay, I think our daughter was maybe 1.5, 2 years old. This was Selah, and so I'm in they had like a little section for like the little kids. They have their own little bouncy area where adults can kind of be over them, and so Selah's bouncing in there, and mind you, the day before they just won the World Series. Day before it was the day before Halloween. This is when they wrapped it up, and it's still in October. So the next day he is here, and I look over and my daughter was a ladybug, and I think his was a bee, I want to say, if I remember right, and he put his daughter down there, he put his kid down there. I can't remember. I think it was a daughter, and he looked at me and he said, "Your kid's a bug too, eh?" And I looked over and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this is Albert Poole." I mean, every day, I wasn't paying attention. It was kind of dark outside at the time, and I'm paying attention to my kid, and I hear, your kid's a bug too, To me, when people ask me about the superstar of Albert, that was my story. Is he was an everyday person that we would see at church. I would see him dropping his kids off at the school before church, before each day, before he would go down to the ballpark a lot of times, and he would have the little pink backpack or whatever, and have his kids going out. And I saw that for the 10 years that we were with him at the church. I mean, he was an everyday person. I never. When I would get tagged along to play golf, when Phil's son Josh would invite me or whatever, I was always the tag along, and he was always super. I mean, just super nice. Just never acted like he was a superstar at all. I mean, he played basketball in the YMCA league. I don't know if you know that, and until he signed his big contract when he
Yeah, I was
said
gonna
that.
say, I don't know if the Cardinals know that either.
No.
Well, what's funny was that was like right before he signed his big contract, and that was right during the time where the player was playing, I think, basketball in his driveway and broke his ankle or something like that, and like all of a sudden they started putting clauses in contracts in the next year, because that was the big extension of Albert back in '03.
Jockey did not like that. He was unhappy when he heard that playing basketball.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of that had to do with the fact that I want to say it might have been a Yankees player who had signed with the Indians, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But one of them, I think he's an announcer now, and I just for the life of me can't think of his name.
Yeah, I've heard that story too.
But he was playing basketball in his driveway. But you also had a lot of other freak accidents. I mean, you had King Griffey Jr. who got hurt on the boat, taking care of his kid, and that pretty much that was that injury to his leg. Was you look at the following years after that, and he never comes back.
Yep, Mike Matheny.
Yep, yeah, Mike Matheny with the knife. Yeah,
It's a big old buck knife. I think he almost sliced his finger off.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
So-
It was during the playoffs. You remember that?
Yeah.
It was like the first game of playoffs. The night before, he was putting his buck knife away, and it went through the sheath
Oh,
and
that's
just
right.
cut his ligament off.
I've got a buck 110 that I do everything with.
Really?
Yeah, it's skinning, butchering.
It's long enough?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
4.5 inches.
We could be handy with that thing.
Yeah.
I would need a bigger knife.
we could bring Jim in here one day just to talk about hunting, because this guy knows more about bullets and hunting than probably.
Well, listen. I walked in the room and I knew this man has killed an animal before, just based on his Crocs. What was the first thing I brought up? Your Crocs, right? Those are sweet Crocs. I've never seen the little. You got like a sport mode thing on the back. Yeah, I think sweet.
So there we go. So you start to develop these relationships. Albert's becomes very special over the years.
Yes.
And I know that, in fact, even when they went out to Los Angeles, you brought Christian Family Day and a group out to him every year. For those who are watching, I put a couple pictures of that up there. But when he was with the Angels, you were still hanging out with this guy. So.
Well, he came into church one day, sat down next to me, and he said, "I can't believe the Cardinals didn't want me." And he was broken, really broken. I said, "Oh, Albert, if I organize a busload to come see you play, are you going to blow us off? Or are you going to be nice to us?" He said, "I never blow you off." So I organized a busload to go see him play in wherever he was. We went to Minnesota and LA.
Chicago, Atlanta.
Yeah, I grabbed a couple of pictures that are up there. They're watching that are I think one's from Los Angeles, one might have been from Colorado, if I remember right. But yeah, you guys went a few places, Texas, I believe, and
Well, we went to the White Sox first, and Chrissy was on the phone with Albert, and I talked to him, and he said, "Judy, I've got lunch for you. Come on over." I said, "Albert, there's 60 of us." He said, "I know, I've rented P.F. Chang's."
That's
And-
cool.
And we went over there, and he loved us first time. First time he had seen us
oh,
since he had been traded. And he hugged on us, and it was wonderful. He was
Yeah.
such a real sweetheart.
well, I know he's been special in his family to you guys, and not just Albert, but AJ and Dee Dee and the whole crew have been special to your family. there's also a guy I got to mention because his trade brought the Cardinals one of the greatest players in Cardinal history that played with Albert. But I know you were a little partial to the dad, and that's Eli, right? So somehow your family got in touch with the Moreros and have stayed in touch with Eli, and then young Eli, who is a prospect for the Red Sox right now, right?
Yeah,
So,
he's playing for them.
he's coming tonight to your house. There you go. So we got.
Surprise.
Tonight?
Yeah, he's back in town.
Oh, he's back in town.
We need to get him on here, Christy. That would be fun. Ask him if you see him tonight, if he would love to come and do this sometime with us. So when he's in, we'd love to have Eli. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So
Good riff with him.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and find out about the minors a little bit. But I mean, the Moreros. How did the Moreros come around? How did you guys all grow close to them? So
Well, that was Christy, but I was sitting in the stands with her, and she was real upset because Eli got hurt, and she just was so upset. I said, I'll help you. So we went out, and I said, Dee Dee, let's pray. Pray? I said, yeah, let's pray. So we prayed for him to be okay. And then he went to the hospital to be worked on. And then he needed a place to hang out when he was finished, so he came to our house. He hung out with us for several weeks till he was ready to go to spring training. And he went back there.
well, I was disappointed when we traded him, other than in the fact that I was a fan of his. I liked him a lot, and I really but then we got Adam Wainwright. And so, down the road, that trade actually paid dividends right away. The Cardinals needed Jason Marquis and Ray King to pitch, and the Wainwright was the big bonus that came right behind it. I know that in talking to Walt that was the center of the trade, but most people didn't understand that. They saw Jason Marquis. We needed a 3, 4, 5 guy. He came in there and provided those innings, and at the time when we needed some bullpen closer help, and Ray King provided that for a few seasons. But I was of the two players traded. You had J.D. Drew and Eli Morel, and I was disappointed that Eli went. I really liked him. I didn't, J.D. didn't faze me at all at that time. I was actually kind of excited to see him go. I think he was dying at the time with the comparison to Albert because they both came up young. They both played rather well, but Albert outplayed him and was the unknown prospect, and he never quite lived up to his superstar status from people that knew him better. Wink, wink, Christy. I hear that he enjoyed hunting maybe a little bit more than the baseball season at that time. So, but that being said,
Yeah, we picked him up at the airport, took him down to the arch. He got to see the arch, and he was all excited about that. He stayed with us, hung just for several days. Christy and he were dating, and he loved hunting more than I think he really loved baseball, although he was a really super player. But he liked to hunt and do all that kind of thing.
What's interesting is I've, over the years through my business, have gotten to know a lot of ball players, and the one thing I will say a vast majority have them in common is hunting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm amazed at how many of them, and a lot of them go together and they'll buy hunting ground together. I know several that have bought hunting ground in Illinois and Missouri so they can share hunt on both properties, so they can knock out their deer on the Missouri side with their tags, and they'll go over to Illinois side. I know a few ball players who do the same thing from the Kansas side and Missouri side. In fact, if you ever see me wear an E3 hat, he has a ranch in Kansas, but he has more property in Missouri just so that he can hunt. And then he's friends with the duck commander, so he goes down to Mississippi and hunts there too.
Who is this?
Adam LaRocha. Adam LaRoche. So, yeah, he was the ball player who had his son, his homeschooled son, went to the ballpark with him every day. And for the first season and a half, nobody had any problems with it. And on one day, the GM had a big problem with it, and he wound up just saying, I'll tell you what, you can keep your $40 million, and I'll just go. And he already had, at that time, during the offseason, he was already recording Buck Commander with a couple country singers, Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean.
Where do you learn all this?
Because I'm a hunter. I watched all the videos. I bought the videos and watched them bow hunt.
You're too much.
They're a lot of fun to watch bow hunt. There's nothing like, one of my favorite scenes was the country singer Luke Bryan. He would just go, every time he would, I've never seen somebody so ecstatic to kill a deer than watching Luke Bryan in a he apparently had a concert in St. Louis and just put out there on some kind of chat thing of like, does anybody have some land I can hunt on? Made friends with some guy in Illinois, so at least at that time he was coming up to Illinois all the time and hunting. Even as the superstardom was taking off, because he had met this random fan of his who had hunting ground in Illinois. So he would bow hunt, and so they actually filmed a lot of buck commander in Illinois.
Sporadic. I'm not committed, so I don't want to. Yeah.
Is your dad?
My dad was, yeah, growing up. He doesn't really do it much anymore. The Worrells, you know Todd Worrell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have a big lodge up in South Dakota, and we used to go hunt in that area growing up till we were about 17, 18. So it's been a few years. I deer hunt every couple of years, but I'm a big bird guy. So I'll categorize myself as a bird hunter, but I don't want to take that title away from somebody that actually hunts deer. I'm not a deer hunter.
He does both.
No.
Oh yeah,
He does both.
Jim does it all. I mean, I've seen him. You know, he's been hunting all over the place.
Well, we bought a farm and Jim hunted.
I know he hunted it and he gardened it for Dee Dee, right? So Dee Dee needed her gardening stuff, so Jim would go garden it and then he would hunt it, and then on top of that, he would every now and then I would talk.
90 acres.
Really?
Yeah.
Wildwood.
Wow.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And it was funny because I would talk to Jim at the church, and he would be like, "Hey, I've got some buddies, and we're gonna go do some bird hunting in Iowa or Nebraska." Or he would have some place, and I'd be like, "Really? Oh yeah, yeah." So yeah. And one of the things that's interesting about that too is during that time as well, me and Jim got rather close. Actually, I started getting to know him before I started getting to know you in Christian Family Day, because we were doing a Tuesday morning Bible study. For those who don't know, let me bring this up just so that they can see it, because maybe they know a little bit about my life, maybe they don't. But I think I got a picture here. I thought I uploaded it. If not, I'm going to. Maybe I have to throw it in later. Thought I had uploaded it, but I had a picture of me. Yeah, here it is. If you're looking, you can look at it where I was overweight. I actually added 100 pounds and during that time period. And your husband came up to me after Tuesday morning Bible study and gave me like a nice little pat on the butt. And I remember him saying, "Hey, you know, Josh, God has great things He wants to use you for, but your weight's going to kind of get in your in a way of you sharing your testimony." You know, it was a great, loving way. Funny enough, absolutely, it was not mean. It was not a bad. He was not being rude or anything like that. I guess somebody could have taken him that way, but I did not take it that way in any way. In fact, I would say the 2 or 3 men in my life who've always stepped up to help me be a better believer are the ones that I go to or would want to hang out with the most, right? I mean, people who never want to help you grow are people who, you know, are probably not growing themselves and not people I want to be around. That's why I like hanging around Scott and you guys, because I like being around people who want to grow in the Lord and want to be better. And so at the time, I think we were pregnant with Selah. I think it was around 03, 04. And so I started hitting the gym and didn't know anything of what I was doing at the time. Just started going. I got a couple trainers that I paid a little bit of money to show me what to do. And even then, I wasn't sure I was doing it right. And but here I am. I mean, you know, that was then and this is now. And I have not really put the weight back on. I keep, you know, back during COVID, he would show up to my office and brag about at 85 years old at that time that he did 100 push-ups that morning and how many I was going to do. So he kept me motivated through the COVID stuff to keep pumping the iron and keep working out. I mean, and Jim, are you still? How many push-ups are you doing right now? I know I can ask.
He has burpees.
Burpees, okay. How many burpees?
20.
20.
Well,
Do you do them on asphalt, just to bring up memories of your childhood?
I've softened up. I put a towel on the floor.
That's what I thought.
Well, I have a routine of 4 different exercises I do, and the last one I do is push-ups, and I do 3 sessions, and the first one is I do 40, the next one I do 40, and the next one I do 40, and then the third one I do as many as I can,
And remind people how old you are.
right now I'm 78.
Okay.
The other way. The other way.
87.
Well, 78 is more believable, honestly.
Yeah,
I don't believe that you're
yeah,
87.
He doesn't look like it.
No.
And what got you into this routine of working out like that? Was that I know you served in the military a little bit. Was that what got you, or were you as an athlete as a young boy?
Just carry over from athletic training and I've read things how to keep in shape and so forth, and I came up with this exercise, 4 different exercises, and the first one is you do stand on a step, you do calf raises, and you do 10 to 12, and then you get up against the wall and do back squats,
Yeah.
and you hold it for 30 seconds. Then you go over to a bench or something and do dips. And I do each of those. You do 10 or 12. I do 12, and then you rotate back to the stairs and do your calf raises, and then you go back and you do your push-ups.
How many times do you do that? Just twice? 3 times. 3 times.
3 times. That's
Wow.
3 sets.
When do you do it?
That's more than I do.
When do you do it? Sundays?
I used to do it on Sunday mornings, but with your condition, I've had to rotate my schedule to do them during the week.
Oh.
Well, there you go.
That's cool. Well, it pays off. Whatever you're doing,
Keep doing it, right?
because if I'm 87 and look like you, I'll be doing some things.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, any other questions for you, Scott? We've gotten through a lot of things of their lives.
Yeah, I guess if we're finishing up the family faith night, was the Cardinals? You're the originator.
Yeah.
You're the originator. So everything that came after was modeled off of that.
Right.
And just recently, and tell me if this seems similar to what the first family faith night was like. So the last one I did was in LA in 2017. Guys come out, give their testimonies, do some worship, and then like a Q&A from the people in the stands, and that's essentially it. There's some little bit before the game and a little bit after the game, but that's the essence of what family faith night is. Is that kind of what it looked like the first year?
No, it didn't look anything like that. It's exciting that it's out in L.A.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
It's going
They
everywhere.
put on cool concerts. They've had some big guys out there.
We have concerts as well.
Yeah, they had Mercy Me and
Mercy
Casting
Me.
Crowns and
Yeah.
El Salvador.
El Salvador. Yeah,
Yeah.
Salvador, not El Salvador. Salvador.
Dee Dee said we need to add music to this program. So she brought Salvador. She now paid $30,000, which blew my mind, to bring them in.
Oh wow.
And then from there we started adding all these groups.
Yeah, I remember when I was there, we brought Mercy Me and Casting Crowns, and we even had Third Day. I think they had a concert somewhere else, but they swung in for a few minutes to be a part of things. I think it was Mac Powell and a couple of the guys from Third Day, and so yeah, I mean it was.
Third Day, I love Third Day.
Remember Chris Tomlin was there.
Oh yeah, Chris Tomlin. That was back when Chris Tomlin was still like out of his van, right? If I remember right. I mean, that was in his early days when he was first kicking it on the CDs out of the back of his van.
The music.
So, that was when he was coming up from Texas, and he was just trying to get any gig he could.
Yeah.
And he came up, yeah.
That's great.
Tomlin, he's gone for places now, right? So,
Wow.
the guy continues to use them and his voice in a mighty way. So, and all those guys, I mean, God has continued to grow. You guys have had a lot of.
Judy, sorry to cut you off.
No, you
the
come
origin. You said so when I asked you about the origin story about why you love sports. You went to high school and said I wanted to be a sports writer.
Right.
What caused you? Was it your home life? Was your family into sports? Was it you saw someone on do something athletically spectacular when you were young? Why sports? Why not? I mean, obviously you're a writer. What I gather from you is you get something in your mind and you do it. And so somewhere along the line, something got in your head. Sports.
I'm a doer. Yeah, I had trying to think.
Wally Moon.
Oh yes.
I just put the picture up because I knew that
Wally
that's where
Moon.
we were going to go. I absolutely knew because that is her all-time favorite player, and you were thrilled with that you got to meet him. So for people watching, I actually grabbed a couple of. I knew there's no way I was going to talk about Judy Boen and not have Wally Moon on the show. So
He was every word in my mouth when I was growing up.
Many of Judy's high school friends, that's the only name they know her by.
Yeah, they called me Wally.
So that was your favorite player growing up. What made you like him?
He was my hero. Well, he came up and we went to the game, my very first game. My dad took me to Sportsman's Park. And people booed him when he came out. And I thought, why is he booing him? And with that, he hit a home run out onto the highway, went all the way. And I said, oh my gosh, he's wonderful. And I booed him when he came up after that. And I said, this has got to be my player. My dad liked musical. My brother liked Warrior, and I said, this is my player. Well, when I take something on, I take something on. And we got to meet him, and he threw me a baseball. Well, that sealed it, for sure. He threw me a ball. I can see me. It was behind the Cardinal dugout in Sportsman's Park.
That's awesome.
That's when you married baseball and decided till death do you part.
Yeah.
That ball.
What?
The reason they were booing Wally Moon was because he had replaced Enos Slaughter.
Oh, but Wally went on to have a great career for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Not as good as Slaughter was good.
Slaughter was really good, but I mean Moon during that little period of time, he wound up being, wasn't he an all-star during that time?
He was Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year, yeah.
Yeah, he was a good player. The Cardinals traded him, broke my heart.
Yeah. Well,
That's funny.
The funny part is Judy went around in the snow with a petition to keep Wally Moon in St. Louis.
Oh my, that's
I
hilarious.
didn't know you couldn't do that.
Well, you did do it. You did do it.
I did do it, but they do it any good. I sent it to Bob Bragg, and
Maybe you didn't get enough signatures.
I had 500 plus.
Really?
I went, yes, I go into my class. I took it to school. I went around the neighborhood, took it to church. Anyway,
That's awesome.
no one told me I couldn't do that. So,
Well, I think you could do it. Just
No results.
yeah, no results.
I had no result.
That's hilarious.
So that's how I became a fan. They broke my heart to trade them. And one day we were at a meal, and the GM for the Cardinals was serving everybody. And I was sitting next to, who was it? Sitting next to, I can't think. Anyway, one of the players. And he said, that's the guy who traded Wally Moon. Oh. He said, you could tell him. So I said, you traded Wally Moon. He said, so? And that made it even worse. And then he said to me, okay. We saw him later, and he said, I'm sorry. So we got a picture of him and him saying he's sorry for trading Wally Moon.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Well, I mean,
You forgave him.
We went out to
who did we
LA.
get for Wally Moon? Do you remember who we traded him for?
No.
That
No,
would be
oh
interesting.
yeah, Gino Smalley.
Oh,
My word. But nothing like Wally.
yeah.
Wally went on to LA and we went out to see him play, and it was great. It was great.
Yeah, Wally had an okay career. He really had he had a hot start, and he kind of just kind of evened out a little
He
more.
hit over the fence. I called him Screeno out there in LA because he would hit it over the wall, high wall that they had there.
What is it with your favorite players moving out to LA?
Oh, I never thought about that. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I kept up with Wally.
I know you have. You've kept up with Wally. You've kept up with Albert. You kept up with the Marreros, obviously.
Wally was a lot older.
Yeah.
He was 92 recently, and he passed away. That broke my heart. But I brought him in for Christian Family Day and everything.
I remember that.
Yeah.
What about So Taguchi? Do you talk to Soa or Miko anymore? I was curious about them.
You talked to him, Gracie?
Yeah, that's because Rio's our friend Rio that comes and stays.
Oh, that's right. We have one of their neighbors, Rio.
Oh, okay. I knew Rio was staying with you. I didn't realize that was the connection. So is the connection of that. Hey, Christy.
Rio's
Yeah,
best friend with Con.
Oh.
They came with to Imoko came with her to our house for dinner one day, and he was just a little guy. They weren't real, and he fell in love with St. Louis and all of this. And when he graduated from high school, that's the only place he wanted to go was to St. Louis to go to college. And Abby took him up to Mizzou. He loved Mizzou, so that's where he is, with Mizzou. And he comes home with Abby, and he stays with the Boens American Times. So stays with
That's
the American Times. And it just
Jason will forgive you.
Just a joy.
No, that's really cool. I didn't realize that was the connection. I'd seen him. I just didn't realize that was the connection. So, and I understand, is So coaching right now? Is that what I understood? If that, yeah, that's what he was doing now. So he was one of my favorite players during his time with the Cardinals, just because he was never fully appreciated. He worked hard. He had to work 10 times harder than most people just to have a position. But man, when he got on the field, he performed. He had for a short time with the St. Louis Cardinals, I don't think we do near as much without him. So he was a contributing player.
He would bend over and thank people. You know how the Japanese do. He was so gracious.
Oh, yeah.
And people loved it because of his graciousness.
Mm-hmm. And what I always thought was cool, too, was the fact that the story behind the Christian Family Day baseball card. You remember that we had it translated into Japanese for Christian Family Day on the back of it? And he was a little concerned at that time because of his family back in Japan, right? Mm-hmm. So, Miko, if I remember right, she had come to know Christ in Memphis through the women's Bible study, if I remember. Is that right, Christy? Is that sound right?
Yeah, through Bible study.
Yeah, I think it was the women's Bible study for the players that she had come to know the Lord, and he had come to know the Lord. But he was a little concerned about word getting back in Japan because Christianity was not fully embraced there like it was a little more open here. And so, but do you remember what happened?
We're still alive.
Well, I know that. Yeah, but didn't his family eventually see one of the cards and think that was kind of a cool deal or something like that?
Oh, yeah. They loved him. I'm sent over to him. And I said, are you going to pass it down? Share your faith.
Yeah, I think he told me that he was really shocked. I remember I was talking one time, and I think he said that he was not expecting his family to receive it well. And when they saw one of the cards, they really thought it was cool, and it was well received, and they kind of, God had softened, I guess, their hearts at that time. So.
Well, my other daughter, Angela, would write their stories on the back of the card, and she wrote it just beautifully. And they accepted that so well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really, really, really cool.
Christy came up with the idea of the baseball cards.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I like it. I still hand them out, even though Christian Family Day in and of itself hasn't been around. The Cardinals kind of ended that and took it over to the Faith Day. I still have a lot of cards that I still hand out. I still run into people who are big Albert Pujols fans or Wainwright fans, and I'll hand out those cards because they're still a great tool for sharing Christ, especially with young guys. So I've got stacks from back here that I still hand out to folks that, you know, if a kid comes in here and, you know, I can tell they're a Cardinal superstar fan or something like that, I'll say, hey, I got something you might like. And
Your idea's still out there and working.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
that is cool.
What?
I said Christy's idea of the cards is still working. The
Oh,
idea is
yeah.
still being used
Yes.
to this day.
I have youth pastors call me all the time wanting some cards to pass out to there.
I bet.
We're running low, but we're still doing it, aren't we, Chris?
Yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, hey,
God has really used that baseball card.
God has used yours and Jim's testimony to do great things, right? So the baseball cards are just part of that. And when you submit to God and you do what He's called you to do, you can expect great things because He never calls us to do little things, anyways, right? Usually the little things add up to great things. So, and it seems like no matter whether you're not as well known and on the platform putting the ship together and driving at an eighth of a mile an hour, or whether you're the secretary for a bunch of astronauts who gets convicted by not sharing her faith that one time that she felt her heart being pricked, to, you know, starting Christian Family Day, to embracing people for who they are, not even knowing, you know, hey, this guy is going to come up and be gone. You had no idea that Albert would be Albert at that time, and nobody in the world knew. Okay, maybe Mark McGuire at that time. I think he had an inkling. He was pretty excited during spring training, but you know, at that time, Bobby Bonilla was supposed to be the starting right fielder or left fielder, and
Third
Baseman, wasn't it?
third baseman.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, it was a little bit later. They took him out of the outfield.
yeah, he snapped his Achilles heel, and Albert got his opportunity. I remember that. And I remember Albert also saying at one of our Manly nights that he had told Didi, he'd been told he was going back to the minors, and he had said that he told Didi that he wasn't going to try baseball if he didn't make it next year. He goes, I'll give it one more year because I just had the greatest spring training of my life and didn't make the team. And he wound up getting a call not too long after that conversation that Bonilla had popped his Achilles heel, and so Albert was now supposed to join the team in St. Louis. So yeah, amazing how God works. You know, here he had the greatest spring of his life. Thought he was going to go back to the minors. God orchestrates it, and of course, every July we celebrate Bonilla Day, right?
Yeah.
You know this?
No.
Bobby Bonilla signed the first major league contract that gets paid in arrears. Okay, meaning every July the Mets write him $1 million check. He had I think it was a $30 million contract that was supposed to be paid out $1 million for 30 years after he retired.
My word.
So every July, social media celebrates
Whoa.
Bobby Bonilla Day.
Bobby Bonilla is still getting paid more than some players on
Yeah.
the Mets.
I was looking at the
Didn't hear
pay.
that.
Wally Mooney made $36,000.
Well, funny enough, it's funny that you say that. I actually had a guy the other day on social media ask about Stan Musial, and he's like, is this true that he got paid $88,000 and in return $12,000 to the owner? And it's true. Stan Musial is the only player in Major League Baseball history who actually went to the owner and said, I did not play the way you paid me, and here's the money. And so he actually returned money to the Cardinals for a season that he and by the way, during that season he still hit over 300. He just had been injured and hadn't played quite as well and had missed a few key things, and he thought that the reason they didn't make the playoffs that year was because of him. So he returned $12,000.
Did he gift it? Maybe there's some tax purposes involved.
No, he was.
I'm just
Yeah, it's really interesting. He was also the reason the Cardinals stayed in St. Louis, because the Cardinals were put up on the block to be bought, and he went to his friend Augustus Busch and said, "Hey, you should buy the Cardinals." And he literally was the guy who talked Augustus Bush into buying the St. Louis Cardinals back then. Yeah, that's how the Bushes, Bush had kind of maybe had a little interest, but
I never heard that.
You didn't know that?
I know either.
Yeah.
Sister Bush is my friend.
Yeah, he was friends with Bush. Another little hidden story, and most people don't know, is that Yogi Berra grew up in St. Louis around the hill and retired back there. So my wife Amy, her grandfather was a postal guy, and he actually delivered mail on the hill, and then he would play golf at Forest Park golf course afterwards, right? And back then they were forced. What they usually look for is somebody who would get mad and throw their stick, or break a stick, and they could go get it refitted with the thing because they couldn't afford a full set. And he would tell me these stories. And one of his houses he would visit was Yogi Berra. Well, Yogi Berra was one of the first contracts with Wheaties. And so Yogi Berra got all of these Wheatie boxes that he was never going to eat, so he would give them to his postal guy, and he'd bring them home and feed my wife's family with Wheaties. Wheaties. So.
They still have the park in where he grew up. Yogi Berra played like stickball.
Yeah,
they like memorialized the piece of land where the kids in that neighborhood play stickball with Yogi Berra.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun to go down there. Great restaurants.
Yep.
Down there.
Yeah, there's a good Italian restaurant right there that I've eaten, and that's why I know that.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
right on that corner.
Little treasures around our town, right? And unknown facts.
Zito's.
Yeah.
Well,
I wanted to share when I became a Christian. Some adult told me that I need to get a Bible verse and have it and claim it. That's mine. So I'm flipping through the Bible. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. And God did that for me. It was amazing what he has put in my heart and what has been happening.
I couldn't agree more. That's why I was thrilled to get you in here to hear your story, your testimony. I've heard bits and pieces of it, but I also say we usually end each episode with a Bible verse. So I think that
you nailed it.
Yeah. I think you just nailed the end of our episode. Really,
cool.
really well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Great bookend.
Yeah.
That was good.
Very much. Well, thank you guys for listening in on Triple Play. We appreciate your support. Again, just keep subscribing and sharing us. And with that,
wait. I think Judy. I think you guys. If you have any last words or anything,
yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Are we dying?
No, I mean we all will.
Last words.
We all will probably.
Okay.
Unless Jesus comes back first, right?
Yeah, that's the comes out
You can hope for that.
I hope I'm working in Revelation, so I gotta wait till I finish with that, God, and then come back.
Okay.
So I know what to do.
Yeah.
What was your question? Oh,
Just if you had any, maybe you had maybe one more story, or if there's like a thought you had, a fleeting thought, if you wanted to give a shout out to any of.
The story of when Albert said, I don't have a verse to say.
Oh, yeah. The players all went out one time doing the Christian Family Day.
Yeah.
And Albert came back to me and he said, Judy, I don't have a Bible verse. They all have Bible verses and I don't know what. I said, okay. God put a thought in my mind. I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me. So he went out there and said it like it was his own.
That's awesome.
And one day we were doing our trips, and he gave his testimony, and he said, inside my shoe, I've written, I can do all things to Christ who strengthens me. And he said, every pair of shoes he'd write that Bible verse in there. And when he put them on, he'd look and see that God was going to strengthen him as he went out to play ball. So, holy cow, what God did with one verse came out of nowhere, and God used it.
Well, Philippians 4:13 is one of my favorite verses.
I know.
Yeah, that is awesome because when I was going through college and high school, that was kind of my life verse. So for sure. So yeah, today my life verse would be, it's actually said several times, but humble yourself before God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So so it's my reminder to be humble at all times. So
Well, God has been faithful. There's no other words to put it. He's put all these ideas in my head. I just wonder where they come from. And puts all these ideas in my head. And we do them.
yes, you do. You're not just one that God gives an idea to, but you're a person of action.
Well, since I've been in the wheelchair, I woke up one morning, my legs were like rubber. I couldn't walk. So I'm learning to walk again. And then I'm going to be out doing whatever God has for me to do.
I believe that 100%. Yeah, I believe that 100%.
Yeah. You guys have been used and will continue to be used until.
From the little kid, I got to tell a story.
Okay.
From the little kid that Christy Beebe said, she was so excited. My mom had just died. My other daughter called from college, and Christy's so excited. And she said, "Did Grandma die?" I said, "Yeah, but Andy VanSlyke asked Christy to come babysit." And she's so excited. She's so excited.
That excitement didn't last very long, I don't think.
No,
When she met us.
she came home from babysitting you, and she said, "Mom, I couldn't get them to bed. I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. They didn't listen." And she said, "They'll never ask me to come back and babysit again. I'll never be able to babysit for any VanSlyke again." And she didn't.
Well, to be fair, she was competing. We had a cousin right up the street that we used a lot.
Oh.
So my mom had an aunt that would travel with us, and so not your fault.
You should tell us the story of the shoes.
What?
Like shoes.
Oh, the shoes about the ruse.
Oh.
Yeah, and how he gave you the shoe and the shoe. So yeah, the story. My dad gave Christy a pair of shoes that were broken, and little did you guys know the reason his shoes used to break a lot is because they're kangaroos. It's not company doesn't exist anymore. So on the turf, it used to get hot during the summer, and the heat would melt the plastic that held the metal spikes in, and so he would very regularly give shoes to fans that were broken. You were the first one.
Okay.
You started the trend, probably.
So was he like? Well, were you like a VanSlyke super fan after that?
Oh, I was a Tommy Her before that fan. I have pictures of my jersey said Her, and I'm grabbing these shoes from Andy VanSlyke, and I became an instant Andy VanSlyke.
Well, that's
And
good. They're
VanSlyke
friends.
after
The Hers and the VanSlyke families are friends. So
Well, I mean, come on, Andy VanSlyke. He went on to have your dad had quite the career.
yeah,
So
he played a while.
we don't go to the '85 World Series without him, right? So we get to watch him play between maybe arguably one of the best outfields of all time. I mean, you got Bobby Bonilla on one side, you got Barry Bonds on the other side, and Andy VanSlyke, and they were all young. I mean, this is the peak.
Yeah, mid late 20s. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all peaking at the same time. I mean, it was like 3 All-Stars. In my mind, there's very few outfields, even today, that rival the talent on that field at that time. Because obviously, I mean, Barry Bonds, 30 home runs, 30 steals, very solid. Your dad, one of the best defensive center fielders at the time, plus, his 20-plus home runs, plus his Gold Gloves. And then you got Bonilla, who was, a little bit slower on the bases, but he could certainly hit. And he would, versus having the stolen bases, he would hit the 40 home runs. I mean, that just, wow. I mean, just what an athletic outfield that time was for Pittsburgh. And as we talked before, you'll never see that again. The way they're spending money, or not spending it. Oh, they raise talent and let it go. So they've become a breeding ground of raising good talent and let them go. They just don't invest in their players the way other teams are. They tend to always want to keep their payrolls low. and for whatever reason, and they've never really they haven't put together a championship caliber team in some time. They've had a few times where they'll grow up enough young talent that they'll have like one good year, and then contracts start coming up, and as soon as that starts getting on the horizon, they don't usually keep them very often. So just kind of the MO.
That's a shame. Well, Jackie did a great job with the Cardinals when he was here.
Oh yeah. I mean, he personally recruited Mark McGwire. I mean, some could argue that move, Mark McGwire coming to the Cardinals, revived baseball because the fans had been down due to the strike. TV contracts were not doing so well, and he goes out and McGwire at the time was not doing well. He had not been hitting well at all, which is why one of the reasons Oakland was willing to trade him. He had gone into his first major slump in his career. And then comes to St. Louis, and guess what he does his first time at bat?
Big Mac Land.
No, struck out.
Wow.
It was one of the reasons he fell in love with St. Louis. He said because he struck out, and everybody was still excited for him. They cheered for him regardless, and he said that was when he started to realize that the fan. He come from Oakland where they didn't do that at Oakland, and all of a sudden in St. Louis you're striking out, and they are still going to support you. And
Till death do us part.
Real
I'm not
fans.
the only one.
Yeah.
So
Real fans out there.
There really are
Yeah.
in St. Louis.
yeah.
They're
Well,
about their team.
they draw from everywhere. We learned that about the Christian Family Day. That was one of the things that I learned a lot when I was involved in Christian Family Day was that I knew I had family and friends from like Tennessee and Arkansas who supported the Cardinals. I just didn't realize how many people traveled here from those places. You have Iowa, you got even Kansas, because Kansas City turned around and they've done fairly well over the last. I mean, they won a World Series in the past 10 years, so they've gained some more fans. But at that time, I mean, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, Southern Illinois, Arkansas, and even a little bit of Northern Texas. Everybody drew here to Oklahoma. All those places that kind of touch Missouri, they're almost all, and also part of that, I guess, was during the radio era of KMOX on a crisp night that would travel, the sound would travel, so people could listen to it out in their farmlands and wherever in the middle of nowhere in these places. So that was the one game they could get on the radio, so they listened to the Cardinal broadcasters. Which, by the way, for those listening, Harry Carey would have been a part of that. And they just announced that his grandson is going to be the new Cardinal announcer starting this season.
Cardinal announcer?
What's that?
He's going to be the Cardinal announcer?
Yeah, the new Cardinal announcer. He's been announcing for the Boston Red Sox, and he just stepped down in the past 48 hours. There were two of them in the running, and one of them pulled himself out of the running, so the job went to the other guy, and it's Harry Carey's grandson or great-grandson.
Holy cow.
So coming back to St. Louis to broadcast for the St. Louis Cardinals. So
wow.
Yeah, I saw a lot of stuff on social media because if you ever go back and look at Harry Carey, some of his St. Louis days, he was a wild man.
Holy cow!
Holy cow!
Holy cow!
But you gotta be in your undies, right, or your shorts. He would always have no shirt on and his shorts. And holy cow!
Holy cow!
Yep.
Them.
Those hot bush nights because they didn't have a lot of airflow through there, so they would. And
They
that
really did that?
What's that?
They really did that?
Oh, yeah. You go back and look at Harry Carey back in the Sportsman Park days, and as the game would wear on, he'd start out all nice, and by the time the game was over, he'd be down in like his shorts with no shirt on. Oh, yeah. So, those were some wild days back then.
I believe it. That sounds wild.
Well, what are you going to do? You're hot. You're announcing this concrete brick. You have you have very few options if you can't get air, right?
Yeah.
So, and he was not a skinny guy at that time. He had some girth on him. So
He was great.
Oh, he was. He was a great announcer. Had a great career as an announcer, and St. Louis is known for announcers, right? I mean, we had Harry Carey, we got Jack Buck Jr. You got
Joe Buck.
I'm sorry, yeah, Joe Buck Jr. I'm sorry, Joe Buck.
Wayne Hagen.
Yeah.
Wayne
Hagen. Yeah, we've had a lot of good announcers or television personalities come through.
So one day I was walking through the stands and I had my Wally Rooney shirt on, and it said Wally Moon, and I had painted his picture on my shirt. And Joe Gargiulo said, hey, he came over and he said, I want you to be my fan in the stands. As the program he had was fan in the stands. So I'm on fan in the stand, and he said, tell me about this Wally Moon that you're so gung-ho on. So I told him all about it. And he said, wow, that's amazing. So I'd written poems about Wally, and I said my poems on the air, and I did all of this. And I got a song that I sang about Wally. I mean, I did it all. So I get home after it's over, and my brothers go, you embarrassed us to death. You embarrassed us to death singing on the radio and singing about Wally Moon and telling us poems and whatever.
That's
I'm
awesome.
just
But
thinking
I
to
was in
myself,
my
Scotty
glory.
never got that kind of recognition with the Dodgers.
For what?
A super fan like this. Did anybody write a song about Scott VanSlyke?
I know someone that probably did that. Yes. I have a fan.
You have one
Wally.
fan.
One fan.
Yeah.
He's got one super fan.
Yep. One super fan.
Judy is Wally Moon's president of his fan club.
Yeah.
There you go. I believe
He
that.
wrote a book. We're at the winter warm-up, and he's signing all these books. They're coming through. One kid said, my dad's your number one fan, Wally. And he says, no, he's not. Judy's my number one fan. Oh, that poor guy. I felt really bad for the kid because he was so enthusiastic about his dad being the number one fan.
That's awesome.
Judy is. He wrote that. He wrote a book, and he wrote that in the book.
That you're his number one fan, and
Yeah.
you have the fan club. I mean, come on.
I had fan club. Yeah, we come down like girls and see him play. And
That's awesome.
That is really a super fan, right? So
yeah,
and somehow Jim handled all that pretty well.
when we were dating and got engaged and went to different people who were in my past and take him, I want them to meet my future husband. And he said, does Jim know about Wally?
Did Jim have to ask Wally's permission to marry you?
Yes.
No, I said, who the hell is Wally? Who the hell is Wally Moon?
He'd had it finally enough.
Let me ask you one other thing. When you were down there and
Your mic went off.
Did it go off? Hello?
Can't hear you anymore. I don't know if recording stopped or.
No.
All right.
No.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Go ahead. Don't mind me. Keep going.
Okay. Well, if not, I'll lean this way so it gets picked up by you guys, because this is a little different mic. But it does sound weird in here. I hear a little different sound, so I'm not sure what's going on. Anyways, with my question is, Jim, when you were working at NASA and all these young astronauts she was the secretary for, were you a little concerned? Did you make sure they all knew that she was taken?
No, I have complete trust in Judy no matter where she is or what she does.
I knew that. I didn't question her.
If you look at my book, I got a picture signed to me, Luscious. Signed Luscious. And they all were just really friendly.
They called her Luscious.
Oh, okay. They called you. And one other quick question. I saw in there one that says there was a page that says "Be My Valentine."
Oh, yeah.
Who was that?
That was Swigert.
Ah,
Yeah, he wrote on my you did mat on your desk, and he wrote in there, and I got that in my scrapbook. I tore it out and
saw
put
that.
it in there. That'll be my Valentine. Yeah.
so you made sure that ring was on there good. There you go. That's why you went to the dance, is to make sure.
I couldn't get him to go to many. I don't want to go see those ballparks. I don't want to go see those astronauts.
That's hilarious.
He went to one. I
Yeah,
heard.
went to one.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's right. He checked it out for you.
And that was enough. One and done. One and done. Well, anything else that we need to cover today? I think we got a lot done today.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Well, Scotty, since my mic might be on or off,
Yeah.
why don't you send us off?
Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but Judy, Jim, thank you for being here. We probably scratched the surface of your whole life, and yeah, just barely scratched the surface, and that it was unbelievable to hear your stories, where you've come from, how God's used you, how you've responded to things that God wants you to do, and a life continuing to live well. And I want in the future to get more from. I want to hear more. I want to hear all about your lives. You know,
the little kids that make Christy cry.
yeah. It was a joint effort. My brother was a participant as well. Right?
Yes.
It wasn't just me. I didn't cause all the problems. But thank you for being here. Thank you. I know it's tough to sit and talk for hours on
golly,
end.
thank you for caring.
Yeah.
Thank you for
You're
caring.
welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, check us out on Triple Play, and we're on every medium of media out there now. So whether you're listening or you're watching, we appreciate the support.
Thank you. You're safe